Guys, welcome to the J Scott Outdoors podcast. Today is going to be a unique episode with the guys over at DropJawFlies.com. And they have a great podcast, and I encourage you to go check out their podcast at DropJaw Flies. You can check out their website, DropJawFlies.com. And I just enjoy the content that they put out. But we're doing a joint shared episode here. They're going to air their episode on their podcast, and I'm going to air this on the J Scott Outdoors podcast. So, guys, hope you enjoy this episode. It's a fishing episode, which is a little different than the norm, and you're going to get to hear about streamer fishing. So I hope you enjoy it.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the DropJaw Flies podcast. Today I have a very special guest, and we're excited to have J Scott Outdoors, who is very well known in the West as being a premier hunting guide in Arizona, and also gets to spend his summers in Colorado guiding in some of the rivers over there. Jay, welcome.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, it's great to be on, and love this time of year, the summer, getting out fishing almost every day and being on the water and kind of following the hatches and such on the water. And it's just a great time. I love the summer, and it's great to be on your podcast.
Thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Jay, you're involved in so many things. I apologize. I probably left out a whole litany of things and titles that you're involved in, but specifically, you actually guide fly fishing out in Colorado, and we're going to have a lot of fun today talking about how the fishing is out there and some of the experiences that you're having. You just said you've been following the hatches, and I'm curious to know how have they been this year?
You know, the big hatch around here in the Roaring Fork Valley, I spend the summers here in Carbondale, Colorado, and the big hatch of our valley here is the green drake hatch. And the green drake hatch usually comes off around the 1st of July, and it starts down on the lower Colorado, down by Glenwood Springs. And usually you catch the green drakes right at last light, and even 30 minutes, even an hour after it gets dark. Just unbelievable fishing. And then that green drake hatch progresses up the Roaring Fork, and it works its way all the way up the Roaring Fork up to Aspen. So it moves about 40 miles, maybe a little bit more, and it seems as though, every couple of nights it's moving up another mile. And this year the hatch was great. It was as good as always. Sometimes our water flow is still really high, and then we can get some monsoon rain and such, and it muddies the water up, so it kind of gets a little tricky. But this year seems like the hatch progressed up and down the valley, or up the valley, very nicely, and was able to catch it many nights, just some great dry fly fishing, and then had some cloudy days, around noon to 2 o'clock where it was cloudy, and the drakes came off during the day as well. And so it was a lot of fun for sure. To clarify something you said, I don't physically guide here in Colorado. I just take family, friends, and fish myself. But I'm on the water probably 4 or 5 days a week. And I actually row. I have 3 different rafts that I row, different sizes of rafts, and just enjoy fishing. It's a nice break for me when I'm not hunting, to be able to chase trout, on a fly rod. And another hatch that we have here is obviously the caddis hatch. The Roaring Fork is known for great caddis hatches, and also fish over in the Eagle River Valley, which has fantastic caddis hatches.
Gotcha. Gosh, that's super busy. Now, when you say that you don't physically guide, but you take friends and family, to me, that's even harder than the actual pay-for-play guide in a lot of ways. It's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. For me, just taking my wife fishing, taking some of my friends that come up from Arizona, and then I've made a lot of friends here where I live, and a lot of them are guys that are retired. A lot of guys from 60 to 75 years old that have a lot of experience, and it's just fun to get them in the boat and grill them about business. I'm mine everyday business. I'm in the real estate business down in Arizona. I'm a real estate investor, and so I just love getting some of these older guys in the boat and just picking their brain. And basically, if I could just record, the conversation, it would make great podcast episodes. Because we have lots of great conversations about life and business and everything else while we're fishing. So it's a lot of fun.
That is fun. Some of the conversations I've had over the years with people, when you get them out on the water, it can transform people and their mood, and it can be just a fantastic time in those conversations and the friendships that you make with people out on the water. It's just awesome and something everybody should experience. But Jay, when you're following that life cycle of the hatches out there in Colorado, and you have somebody with you, is it their expectation? Is it just kind of the thing they want to do is just throw dries? And
Well, I'm a streamer junkie. First and foremost, I love throwing streamers.
yes,
But there's something about I either fish dries or I fish streamers. I used to really like to nymph fish.
hmm
When I was kind of still in that stage where had to catch every fish in the river.
right.
I loved nymph fishing, and I've kind of transitioned into dry fly fishing and streamer fishing. I think one of the things about it is I like that interaction of streamer fishing where it's visual, and as well with the dry fly fishing where it's all visual. The water here in the Roaring Fork River is very, very clear, and so you can see those fish either come for the dry from a long ways away, or if you're throwing streamers, ripping down the bank throwing streamers. My favorite thing about streamer fishing is watching the chase, and it's mind-boggling to me how in our valley here in the Roaring Fork and in the Eagle River Valley, when it's a cloudy day, I immediately switch to streamers, and these brown trout just absolutely go into predatory mode and chase the fly. And there's nothing like, in my mind, ripping streamers from a boat drifting, and that first 2, 3, 4 feet off the bank, basically throwing the streamer into the dry fly pockets,
hmm
or the holding water. I call them the dry fly pockets, and then watching those fish actively chase streamers off the bank is about as good as it gets. And quite honestly, I kind of have a thing for chasing big fish, and it seems as though the green drakes will bring a lot of the big fish out of the river up, but you catch more big fish on streamers, to me, than anything else. And I love fishing streamers on a cloudy day. If it's sunny, I'm probably going to fish dries. Late in the mornings, early or late in the evenings, early in the mornings, I fish streamers ripping off the bank. So that's a lot of fun.
Oh my gosh, it really is. And people that haven't experienced that, when you are floating down the river and you see a likely spot, whether it's a drop off, a ledge, an undercut bank, behind a rock, you name it, and you throw your streamer in that vicinity, you make that cast, and it's so cool to watch a fish just blow up on your streamer and then have the fish just crush it. Once that happens to somebody, I think it changes them to where they think about streamers more often, and often it can lead to where you had said that you've become a streamer junkie, because that's what happens when it gets into your blood.
I have known the owners of the Outdoorsmans in Phoenix for over 20 years. They are the authority on optics and hunting gear. Outdoorsmans is the leading designer and manufacturer of high-quality tripods, mounting accessories, and pack systems for all hunters. Their customer service is the best in the business. Go to outdoorsmans.com or call 1-800-291-8065 and use the J Scott promo code to receive 10% off any products. PhoneScope is a company that makes custom-molded, precisely engineered smartphone digiscoping adapters. Photographing wildlife has never been easier. It is simple to text photos and videos from your smartphone and share them with your friends. PhoneScope stands behind their product with a 100% money-back guarantee. Get yours now by using the JScott16 promo code and receive 10% discount on all purchases. Check them out at PhoneScope. That's PhoneSkope.com or on Instagram at PhoneScope. Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the things I like about fishing streamers out of a boat is you're actually standing up higher than you would be if you're fishing, walk and wade. And so for me, getting guys in the boat that maybe haven't streamer fished, once they understand that, I go with the odd X or 1X tippet, and I basically tell them, I want you to throw this and hit the bank with the streamer. And they kind of look at me and I said, if you hang up in any brush at all, just yank the whole tree in with us.
That's right.
And once they grasp the concept of throw it in there tight, and then in my mind, that first 4 feet off the bank, your first initial mend, and I mend downstream because I want the fly to be swimming downstream. I get more chases, I throw 45 across and mend downstream, and the initial strip off the bank is where most of the fish hit.
Mm-hmm.
Once a guy grasps how that system works, in my mind, there's nothing that can beat streamer fishing. Even some of the greatest dry fly fishing, when you have fish that are actively chasing that fly until they eat it, it's crazy. And sometimes you'll have multiple fish chasing. It's just crazy.
That is so cool, and that situation will make you into a streamer junkie for sure. I like that technique that you use. You're floating down the river, and let's say you're looking to your right over to a bank. Obviously, you make your cast, and you throw some slack in your line, and then you make a downstream mend and get the fly pointed downstream, and then strip it. And you're saying that's where you get a lot of your strikes and your chases.
Yeah, for sure. I think, if you have two guys in a boat throwing streamers, I think one of the things that they have to do different than what they're used to when they're fishing dries. When we're fishing dries, kind of everybody's casting in front. The guy that's sitting in the front of the boat is casting in front and to the right, and then the guy behind is casting like off the oar and to the front.
Yes.
Whereas when we're streamer fishing, I like to tell everyone to turn that, about 30, 40 degrees and cast more straight at the bank. And immediately when the fly hits, throw the slack downstream. So do a downstream mend. And that will immediately put that loop in the current. So it's just, you don't even have to strip it. It's going to pull the fly. If you're looking at that right bank, it's going to pull the fly downstream. And so those fish, obviously, most of them are facing upstream. If that streamer can come by them like it's fleeing from the bank, they're going to chase it out into the, towards the boat. And most of the takes will be within, right on the bank to, say 6 feet of the bank. And it's just an unbelievable way to fish. I think you'll get way more hookups if you do that downstream mend and get that fly swimming downriver. And I think it allows the fish, the trout, to actually get the streamer in their mouth rather than, it's hard for a trout sometimes to swim upriver because they have to exert so much energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is fun to watch them chase like that because they're coming towards you. But like you're saying, that was a good description of that downstream mend, and I think people that got a good visual from that, and hopefully they get out there and try it.
Yeah, I got some of those DropJaw Flies and went out the first cloudy night that we had. I went out and tied one on and was actually just walk wading and fortunate to live here in Carbondale on a property that's got about 2 miles of private water, and went out on the Roaring Fork and just started throwing those big old DropJaw fly. And I'm not sure what size I got, but it was a big one. And I love the articulated portion of the fly, and those heads are really, they're so realistic looking. Was able to catch, a handful of browns and just had a smile on my
Well,
face.
I appreciate it, Jay. Thank you for trying those out. I think how that really came to be was I've been tying flies for a long time, and once you get to a certain spot, there's always room to improve. There's always something else you can do, and but the what I wanted to do didn't exist, and I wanted to just push it farther and make a streamer look more realistic, make a fish his impulses go up a few degrees on chasing and eating a streamer. And so that's where the head kind of came about, and hand painting them. But that's so cool you had that experience where if you cast these in, and I would love to get out there and fish that river, but you cast these in and they do look more like a fish. And so it's hard to get into the fish's mind, but you can just see by their behavior that they do have a certain response, especially when the fish are more inclined to eat streamers. When they see one of these, I think it really fools them, at least a little bit better, or to a smaller degree than maybe some of the traditional streamers. So that was the hope, and that's what we're building on, and we'll just keep improving on these designs.
Yeah, and I think too, I'm sure you do it, but I always tie my streamers with a loop. I think it gives them a little more action. It seems like my hookups are better when I tie it on a loop.
Yeah.
And I think I'm just one of those guys. I love trying, big giant streamers. But I would encourage people, if they're not catching fish, if they're just getting chasers, maybe dial it back and go with a smaller streamer. I think sometimes, being, the streamer junkie world out there, it's just so fun to see as big as you can go. But I think it hampers some people in that I think fishing a smaller streamer, a lot of times you're going to get a lot more hookups, and actually a lot more eats, than some of these big streamers.
I totally agree. It's there's a lot more little or intermediate sized fish than there are big ones, and so if you're throwing a smaller, more acceptable meal or streamer, a lot of the trout that you encounter every day, that 12 to 16 inch and then size fish you'll just hook up a lot more with them, and I think people have fun. But after you've done it for a while, or in certain situations where there are big fish and they are going to eat a big meal, then it's fun to start out with a bigger one. I always do. You probably do it too. I
Oh
Just
yeah.
for the fishing aspect, I will start out big, and with our juvenile trout, which is 6 inches and can be 7 1/4, depends on the hook configuration. But if I'm getting chased and hit on that, of course, then I'll just keep it. But if I'm just getting a lot of chases or nothing, then just like what you're saying, then I'll start to go down in size.
For sure. I mean, let's face it, big trout eat big bait fish. So, I mean, the bigger the better. And, if you're targeting big fish, a lot of times, throw the biggest streamer you got. But I've seen fish eat streamer that's, that they're about as big as the streamer too. So, I mean, it works both ways.
It really does. It was surprising to me early on when I was streamer fishing, stripping, and you get a hookup with a fish and you pull it in, and there's an 8 inch trout, half of it hanging out of a 16 or a 17 inch fish, and you just wonder. Trout are crazy, and they are
Yeah.
they are awesome. They are there to eat, and it's like they don't really care, or they don't comprehend the size of meal that they're eating. It's just available, and they're going to try it no matter what size they are.
Utah Hydrographics is in the water transfer printing service, and they can dip almost anything into a wide range of camo patterns, designs, and colors. Whether it's guns, bows, tools, rifle stocks, vehicle parts, steering wheels, cups, or tripods, Utah Hydrographics loves taking things that are general looking and turn them into something that looks fantastic. Give them a call and see what they can do for you and receive up to a 10% discount by using the JScott16 promo code. Visit them at utahhydrographics.com or on Instagram at Utah Hydrographics. Reel game calls featuring the elk reel. Reel Game Calls makes innovative, realistic, and easy to master calls using their proprietary, revolutionary design. They are located and manufactured in Gypsum, Colorado. Their calls were designed and battle tested on some of the hardest hunted terrain on earth. Check out elkreel.com. Use the promo code JScott and receive a 20% discount on all purchases. Go to www.elkreel.com. Absolutely.
So very cool. When you said, Jay, too, about mending and casting to the bank and everything, the casting element in streamer fishing can be important and sometimes very technical. And I'm just wondering, when you have your guests with you, have you found some effective ways to communicate casting and what it takes to cast big streamers?
Well, I like them to use a bigger rod. I like to use a 6-weight rod or bigger. That's one thing. Number two is I tell them all that stuff we've been talking about with your dry fly cast where you're stopping the rod up high, and some of the 10 to 2 stuff. I'm actually a lot more, it's going to look a lot more sloppy. I'm actually using the weight of the streamer to cast, whereas a lot of times you're using the weight of the fly line.
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, a good streamer cast is going to be kind of a more open cast. I feel like if you use more of that dry fly cast, you're gonna tangle that line up. So it's more like casting a bubble and an indicator. Kind of lay the rod back a little bit more. And this is just how I do it. It may not be the correct way, but I tell guys to open their cast up a little bit more. And you know how when you're casting a spinning rod or a bait casting rod, you're not actually casting the fly line. You're actually casting the weight that's, the lure that has weight. The same principle for me applies when I'm streamer fishing. I try and get guys to cast with a more open cast and feel the weight of the streamer. Because most streamers have a little bit more weight to them, and that seems to help me and the guys I'm fishing with out. Whereas, maybe we've been fishing dries and I was really focusing on a tight loop. I want more of an open, more of a sloppy cast. In my mind, fishing streamers. And a lot of times when I'm fishing streamers, it ain't pretty. I mean, I got line wrapped all around me and I'm just throwing and going. But sometimes I'll throw it a foot up onto the bank and yank it down out of there just because I want to get it in the right spot. And I'm not afraid to cast, if I'm fishing a small stream, to cast to the far side. And if I hook up on a tree, I'm just going to start yanking till that thing comes out, because a lot of times my leader and my tippet is so stout that, I can literally uproot a small redwood. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's that's another thing about streamer fishing that's cool, I think, is that you don't have to have the perfect cast. And as long as you can get it in the pocket and you can then have some good line management and keeping your rod tip low and being prepared for those fish to strike and, strip setting. And the first thing people want to do is raise their rod when a fish hits instead of, strip set, go low with your rod tip. You're going to get a lot more hookups.
For sure. I mean, with the bigger hooks, and especially if you pull them through the rocks just a little bit and the point's not there like it was when it was brand new, if you just raise your rod to set the hook, all you're going to do is bend your rod. There's not going to be a lot of pressure to that hook into the fish's jaw. And so if people don't know what the strip set is, like Jay just mentioned, it's not really just raising your rod like you're going to set the hook on a dry fly. It's more pointing your rod down the line at the fish and using your line hand, so you would really pinch that line and then pull it back towards your hip. And you can raise your rod too at the same time if you want, do a combination or whatever. It just depends. But when I'm throwing a really big streamer, Jay, and it has like a 2/0 hook or bigger, and I know that I've pulled it through some rocks, I'm really going to do that strip set. Really set the hook with the line and not the rod.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing is, when a fish is coming and chasing the fly, the first thing guys want to do is pull that fly, lift the rod out. I do the opposite. I like to keep the fly in the water. Even if you've run out of room and say the fish has gotten close to you, I like to use my rod tip, just keep that fly dancing around, and hopefully they'll come and take it. And that brings up another thing. I think tip out there for guys when they're streamer fishing is, once they've thrown to the opposite bank, it depends what you're fishing, but if you're out of a boat, you've thrown to the opposite bank, you've made it downstream mend, I like to wiggle the rod tip too. A lot of times, I'll just I'll kind of get the boat where it's going perfectly distance from the bank. And in essence, there's not a whole lot of stripping. It's basically like cast, wiggle, 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 cast. You're wiggling the rod tip, making that fly dance, and then I'm just ripping it out and recasting it.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can make the fly dance by, wiggling the rod tip, and, you have to go off what the trout like. Sometimes they like just kind of a slow retrieve. Sometimes they like it to be erratic, and I usually play around with it till I start getting followers and chasers and eats. And then once I've figured out if they want fast or slow, if they want me jerking the rod tip or subtle, then I can fish it accordingly.
You bet. I mean, the trout keep us guessing, and I guess it's just their way of keeping us on our toes, because if they did the same thing and reacted to our flies the same way every day, they'd be in a world of hurt. And it's just never like that. You can, just like you're saying, if you go out and you're fishing and you have a great day on streamers, and you go home and you tell everybody, hey, get to the river, you go there the next day, it can be totally different. And so, just like you said, the experimentation of the strip, the pause, the depth, how fast you move it, or if you just barely wiggle it, or even if you dead drift it, a lot of those techniques have to be used in order to discover what the trout are going to do from day to day and how to get a good reaction from them. So it's good to have all those techniques, or those different stripping techniques in your bag of tricks, so that you can find out what's going on while you're on the water.
Yeah, I learned something last summer. I usually make 2 or 3 trips up to the green below Flaming Gorge. It's about a 4-hour drive here from where we stay in the summer in Carbondale, and learned something last year. I took some friends up there to the green, and we were fishing. We kind of had a little bit of just kind of a slow day on the first day, and early we didn't get a lot of hits. And so I was talking with a guy there at Flaming Gorge Resort, Woody Bear, who a family kind of owns that place, and he's fished that river a lot, and he works in the fly shop, and he's like, you need to dead drift some boogers early. And I said, what? He goes, yeah, you need to dead drift some buggers, early off your nymph rig. And so the next morning I kind of like to go early there and kind of just go in front of all the guides, so you don't have to deal with, all the traffic and what have you.
Bet.
And, the reason they start a little later is because the hatches and the bugs are moving around. I kind of like to just get downriver and ahead of everybody. But so early on, we get there just after sun comes up and tie on put the strike indicators on with a bubble, a thingamabobber. And first fly is just kind of a ginger colored woolly bugger. And then we've got like a zebra midge or something below it. And I told the guys, I'm like, all right, let's just dead drift these, just like Woody said. And it was amazing. Just fishing, not moving the fly at all, fishing it just like a regular nymph rig and dead drifting woolly buggers. Fish were all over them. It was awesome. It was pretty cool to see that technique. I'd never tried dead drifting buggers.
Yeah, it is a really good technique, and especially on that river, where it gets so much pressure. The fish are seeing streamers and nymphs and dries just galore every day through there. And I think this is only a theory or whatever, because we really don't know obviously what trout are thinking. But if they see something that looks like food, and hey, it's not moving but it looks like food, maybe they're going to eat it because they've been stuck so many times by moving ginger colored or blonde colored woolly buggers. And so it even dead drift has worked for me on non-pressured streams. If they won't chase, then immediately just go to a dead drift and see how that goes.
For sure.
Awesome technique it can be. Streamers is, I don't know how to describe it other than your A-type personality. It can be an experience where you are so focused, you're so in tune, you're hitting every possible trout holding water that there is in the bank, or it can be so relaxing where you're not that focused, it's not quite that intense, and it can be so many different things. Streamer fishing is just a really broad topic, and there's all kinds of techniques and situations that you can use it in. And so I would really encourage people to go grab some woolly buggers to start out with or whatever, and go experiment with their stripping technique, and walk down the bank of the river, and just like you were saying, Jay, is fish the bank. And I want to give one tip here when you're starting out streamer fishing, is that what Jay had discussed in the first part of this discussion is he's fishing right to the bank, and a lot of guys don't have boats. And so if you're in the middle of the river, and you can cast to the bank pretty stealthily. But if you don't have a boat and you're fishing streamers, you've got to know that the fish are right there most of the time, right on the edge of the bank or close to it, because there's a lot of food that comes from the bank, and usually they can get out of the heavy current. So fish are there. And one of the key components to streamer fishing is being stealthy. You're going to want to stand on the bank, but you've got to hold yourself back a little bit, and know that the fish are going to be close to the bank, and be quiet. Keep your movements to a minimum, and get your casts out there close to the bank, or just maybe 10 feet from the river, and then pull it towards the bank. And I would start off doing that.
Yeah, for sure. I also like to fish when I'm fishing streamers from the bank. I like to fish downstream. But I think when you're fishing downstream, you have to really, really be a lot more predatorial, and you have to really kind of sneak, because they're obviously facing you when you're walking downstream. They're going to be looking in your direction. So, but like you said, when I'm streamer fishing from the bank, I like to wear kind of drab clothes. I like to stay in the shadows as much as I can. And a lot of times, all you got to do is just get that streamer, in a little pocket, in a little hole for 6-8 inches, and they'll come and hit it. So I see a lot of people, they come right out and they wade right out into the river, and I just think that's such a mistake, because I'd say 90% of the fish that are catchable are on the bank. Some of the fish way out mid-river, they can be difficult to catch, but the fish that are near the bank, they're actively looking for food, mm-hmm. in my mind, and I think that's a great point that you make there.
Yeah, being stealthy and being undetected is really the best way. Obviously, the only way to go after the big trout, unless you get lucky, and some people do. But if you're hunting, and that's kind of what streamer fishing is, the walking upstream, and the fish are going to be pointed upstream, so they won't see you necessarily. But it's good and let me paint this picture, Jay. If you're actually possibly wading in the river, which a lot of times that you have to because of the bank and the bushes and everything that can be right on the bank. But if you're in the river and you're making casts upstream, a good thing to do is if you see a fish, you don't want to put the streamer right on top of his head. Sometimes, if it's deep enough water, it's okay. But at this time of the year, when the water levels start to go down, the fish are not that far under the water typically. It depends on the river and the hole. I would say if the fish is maybe 2.5 to 3 feet under the surface, you could put a streamer close to its head. He might see it blow up on it. But if it's a foot or less, you want to make your cast maybe 3 to 5 feet in front of him, 5 feet being the best. And I know a lot of people will see fish in clear water this time of year, and they'll make a cast, and it will be right on top of the fish, and it will just scare the fish, and they'll be gone. And they'll say, "Hey, this streamer fishing doesn't work. I put the streamer right by the fish, and it just took off." So there's kind of not a written rule, but if you see the fish in 2.5 feet of water, you could put a fly pretty close to its head. If it's any shallower than that, then plan on making your cast 3 to 5 feet above it.
I think it's a great tip.
Um, there's so many things to cover with with streamer fishing. It's pretty crazy. But Jay, what has been in your memory? What's been your best day? What was it like?
Reel game calls featuring the elk reel. Reel Game Calls makes innovative, realistic, and easy to master calls using their proprietary, revolutionary design. They are located and manufactured in Gypsum, Colorado. Their calls were designed and battle tested on some of the hardest hunted terrain on Earth. Check out elkreel.com. Use the promo code JScott and receive a 20% discount on all purchases. Go to www.elkreel.com. GoHunt.com Insider is by far the most valuable tool a Western hunter could give themselves. GoHunt.com Insider are the industry leaders and #1 source for Western hunting for a lot of reasons. GoHunt.com Insider have changed the game for how hunts and hunting information are found. Within a matter of minutes using Filtering 2.0, you'll be able to filter by state, species, residency, odds of drawing a tag, specific hunting dates, and harvest success percentages to find the hunts that fit exactly what you're looking for. If you are a guy that applies across the West or just in your home state but want to find some new opportunity, there's no better way to do it than using GoHunt.com Insider. As an exclusive offer to my listeners, if you sign up for a GoHunt.com Insider membership for $149 a year and use the promo code JScott at checkout, you'll receive a $50 KUIU gift card. Head on over to gohunt.com/insider and get yourself the most valuable membership a hunter could have. You know, I can think of a lot of great days streamer fishing. It seems like the ingredient for me is always clouds and cloud cover. You get rain. I love it when it starts raining. I immediately switch to streamers. If I see a cloudy day, I have the fortune of, being right here on the water for, 100 days or more here in the summer. And, I'll look at the forecast for the next day and I'll see, whatever window that, like today between 3 and 5, there's supposed to be clouds. I will target those times to go out and fish when it's cloudy, because being a streamer junkie, I love, I get way more eats and way more takes when it's cloudy. I get a lot of chasers when it's sunny. And I catch a lot more brown trout than I do rainbows. We don't have many cutthroat around here, but the browns just seem to thrive on the streamer when it's cloudy. And my best days, I don't know if you're talking size or numbers, but you some of the best numbers as far as putting fish in the boat and bringing fish in is for sure cloudy days. And I feel like with a streamer in the right conditions on cloudy days, I can catch more fish on a streamer than any other fly. And that even includes when the fish are really looking up for dries. I can catch every bit as many fish on a good cloudy day with a streamer as I can, when there's a real good hatch and I'm fishing dry flies. So, I encourage people out there that if they haven't got into streamer fishing, target those days when you see that the weather's going to be a little bit, crappy and you might have to bring the rain jacket. That's when those fish are, in my mind, going to be more predatory, and going to be really, really active for those streamers. And I don't know what it is about the sun, and you may have different experiences, but it just seems like on cloudy days, those fish, the browns particularly, are way more active chasing the streamer. I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, no, yeah, any day you get out on the water is probably awesome, but I don't know what it is either. But why trout like the cloudy weather? Whether it's, I'm sure it has to do a lot with they don't like the bright light as much, especially the browns. They're pretty sensitive
Yeah.
to it. But um,
I think that's a great point too. Like the other day we were dry fly fishing and it was bright and sunny and there was a PMD hatch and you know the same river where a couple days before we caught a bunch of browns. It was cloudy. We fished dries. We fished streamers starting out and then fished dries and caught mostly browns. A couple days later it was bright sunny PMD. 12 o'clock to 2 was a PMD hatch and we caught 90% rainbows. I think the browns, they don't like to look up when it's sunny, whereas I think rainbows don't care as much when it's bright and sunny. The rainbows will eat,
mhm.
and it's just interesting to see the different characteristics of those two fish and how they differ. But for sure, I love brown trout. They're my favorite, and so cloudy days are days that I just relish and cherish.
That is so awesome. I gotta see or get you another fly, Jay, and send some maybe a different color or something like that, and just try it out there. Love to get out there and fish. Next time you go out to the green, let us know, and maybe we can meet and collaborate on a different pattern or something like that.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Usually I get out there multiple times in the summer. I haven't even made it up there one time yet this summer. Usually I go for the cicadas, and the cicadas just kind of really never happened this year. And they had that big flush and big high water push there, and then our fishing here started getting good, so I just didn't make it up. I may make it up here sometime later this month here in August, and see if the hoppers are working up there, and I love that river. It's probably got more trout per mile than any other river around, and it's a phenomenal place for sure.
It is so pretty, and in the summer months, especially when the kids are out of school until they go back to school, it probably has more people per mile on it than a
Yeah.
lot of the other rivers too. But I am with you. I love it. Um, and that fall time all the way up, well, and it'll fish all the way until it maybe never quits fish. You can always catch fish there, but how you really like the brown trout, probably that September until November or maybe the start of December is just really incredible. So if you go there, let us know. We can meet and go catch some fish.
That sounds good. Yeah, a lot of times, several times here, we've gone. My wife and I spend right here in Colorado, and then we've gone several years. We've gone up to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, for the month of August, and one of the things about going up to Jackson Hole area is, with the Green and the South Fork of the Snake and the Snake River. Just about the time we're leaving, because I'm an elk hunter, and so usually I'm back in Arizona by September 1st. everyone's looking at me like, you're leaving? You're just about to miss the, September, October, November, the three best months, and you're going to go hunting, and it kills me to go. And my buddies up there, I get a lot of great photos and such of the action that I'm missing there in the fall, and that's kind of part of being a hunter is, I miss some seasons for sure. Um, but that's a neat area too as well up there. That Jackson, Wyoming area is just a phenomenal area to
It
fish.
is that's probably one of my favorite rivers to float because especially if you float it through the park and to your right is the Tetons, and as you're flowing through that park, it just feels like you've gone back in time to where the West was just wild and unpopulated, and it's just a super cool float. Not to mention the fishing can be just awesome.
Yeah, the last time we spent 2 summers ago, we spent the month of August there, and when we first got there, the actual snake was really high, and I kind of was like, what's all the buzz about the snake? And a lot of little cutthroat, and it was an interesting kind of couple weeks. And then as the water really came down and all those pockets started opening up, the last few days there, the fishing was amazing. And so I can see what the buzz is about the snake. It's, one of the most beautiful rivers, I think, in the world that I've been to. But once that water level dropped, it was amazing to see all those cutthroats, the Snake River cuts, really out actively chasing big foam flies, and just had a lot of fun. One thing I learned there is in my just what I perceived is those cutthroat, they come from the bottom and go straight up, whereas a brown trout and a rainbow trout will move a long ways linear.
Hmm.
I found that those cutthroats, particularly those Snake River cutthroats, um, they would sit low and rise vertically quite a ways to go for a fly, but like they wouldn't move 5 feet laterally for a foam fly. So it was pretty interesting to see that your fly, your drift and such had to be kind of right down the line, or else they'll just let it go by. Whereas a rainbow, here in the Roaring Fork Valley might move 4 feet out to grab a fly. So that was a I don't know if other people have perceived that, but that was one thing that I took away from there is that those cutthroat move a lot more up and down rather than linear on a linear line.
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do probably with the way they can just angle their pectoral fins and just kind of ride up and not use a whole lot of energy to go back and forth. And you know what? Those fish get pounded too in the summertime. And a lot of people will say, hey, cutthroat aren't very smart. They're the dumbest trout, blah, blah, blah. But when they get pressured and they've been stuck a few times, they get as smart as the rest of the fish. They're,
Yeah,
they
yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
they can be really smart as well. Beautiful area too, Jay. I'm glad you brought that up. It's just a great place to fly fish. The tradition there is high, and it is eye candy. Everywhere you look up there is just beautiful.
Yeah. Now you guys are headed to Montana today, is that
We
right?
are, so we're going to go up there and spend some time with at the Federation of Fly Fishers International. They used to call it the Conclave, now it's the Fair. So we're going to go up there and spend some time, meet some people, and do some fishing along the way. And yeah, it'll be a good time. We'll be gone for a week.
That's awesome. I love Montana as well. There's a lot of great places to fish there, and the community, the fishing community, is awesome as well. So you guys will have a great time.
Yeah, it is fun. There's people from all over the world there sharing ideas with casting, with tying, with techniques and stories. It's a great time. It's a great organization to belong to or to follow. There's so much there to learn, and so yeah. Along with Trout Unlimited, the FFF or Fly Fishing Federation's just or Federation of Fly Fishers is the official name, but it's a good one to be a part of. Yeah, Jay, we'll have to continue our streamer discussion. Hopefully again before you break off and you're hunting hard. But it would be fun to get together. And this is just an invitation to you that we would like. We'll bring some DropJaw flies and have you catch some big fish on them next time you're out on the green, if that's possible.
That's awesome. I appreciate the invite. I love the flies. Love following you guys on Instagram and keep up the great work on the podcast. And yeah, it's just awesome to talk to guys that have this, share the same passion and let's get together for sure. Good luck up there in Montana. Have a good time. And yeah, it's just been fun chatting with you.
Will do. Jay, it was a pleasure for me to get to meet you via Skype. We follow you as well. You're a lot more well-rounded than I am as with the hunting and everything, and on all the things that you're involved with and all the animals you pursue. It's kind of mind-blowing everything that you do. Thank you for having us, and we invite everybody listening to follow J Scott Outdoors, whether it's the blog, the website, especially the podcast. And we hope everybody has a safe time out there this fall in all of your activities. And once again, thanks to Jay and everybody. Hook a big one and stick 'em solid.